Okay, so welcome back. And so this is part two of the BU632 course overview. In the last video, when we left off, I was explaining the weekly activities and assessments that you'll have this term, and you can see a quick review of that here. But I did want to go into a bit more detail about each of these activities that you'll be doing so that you can know what to expect in that regard. So in terms of the quizzes, they're going to cover the weekly reading material and the presentations that is out there in the course classroom and also in your e-text. It's going to be about 10 questions per quiz. They will be multiple choice and true false. They're pretty straightforward. Most of the questions really, although you may find some details from the external reading material and the presentations, the vast majority of the questions you'll be able to find the answers to right there in your textbook, and so they'll come directly from the text, and they should not be anything out of the ordinary. Some of them can be a little tricky and cause you to think more in depth about the material, but no essay responses or anything like that. It'll be multiple choice, true, false, and you will normally receive about an hour on those, so more than enough time to complete a 10-question quiz. It's obviously open book as well, so you can leverage that resource, and you only receive one attempt on the quiz, okay? So it cannot be retaken or anything like that, and it has to be taken during the week in question, okay? So there's no extensions on those quizzes. At the end of the unit, once the week ends, the quiz will automatically shut off, and you will not have an opportunity to complete it after that time. So be sure that you do complete the quizzes during the unit in question where we're studying that particular topic, okay? The case study reviews, you'll have two of these that you'll be doing this term, and the case studies come directly from the text, okay, so you can find those there. And what you're doing is you're critically analyzing the case and responding to questions highlighted in the assignment, so you can find those questions at the end of the case study itself. And really the goal, those questions are there to just kind of lead and guide you in responding to and addressing the quiz and analyzing it, but you're not limited to only responding to those questions. I'm really just interested in seeing you critically review the case study to offer any insights you may have, maybe do some external research as required if you need to, and just to offer recommendations, on what can potentially be done to address the primary and most pressing issues in the case study. Definitely you're putting your emphasis up on critical analysis and not just summarizing or paraphrasing the case back to me. I have access to the case studies. I've read the case studies, and so I'm not nearly as interested in hearing you just summarize what's going on in the case as I am in you identifying the most pressing issues, challenges, and the problems and addressing them using the concepts from the class that we're discussing, and just really analyzing, how they can potentially overcome these hurdles and barriers they're being met with in the case. Should be about 3 to 4 pages in content. That's excluding the cover page and the references page, okay? You're always going to use APA 6th edition in this course. That's the standard norm. There's an APA writing template that I've posted out in the announcement section, so be sure to pull that down. That will help guide you and give you some tips on how to approach APA. You can also use that as a template in terms of inputting your details inside of that writing template, and so it's already formatted in standard APA form and style. You just need to input your own details into the template, and then be sure that you cite the sources, and it gives you examples on how you actually cite and reference your sources, things of that nature. The midterm exam or the midterm project is going to be a written assignment. It's going to be about 6 pages in content. You're going to use APA 6th edition like you normally would. It should have at least 7 external sources. Those should be credible sources that are either coming from professional practice or scholarly research sources as well. Essentially, some of the topics you'll be covering in that paper is, what's a project? You'll be talking about what project management is as a discipline. You'll mainly be providing an overview of the details that we've covered up to that point. How do organizations leverage project management? What's a project team? What's the difference between a project manager and a project leader? And just different topics along those lines, okay? And then you will also include more of a critically reflective portion in that paper where you talk about how the project management concepts we've been discussing up to that point, up to the midway point in the class, how that applies to your own professional career. You know, how can you leverage some of these concepts? How have you used these concepts in the past? Are you learning new material that will contribute to your career and your position or whatever your career pursuits, and discussing how that has been beneficial for you. So this will be much more self-reflective in nature, this second portion of the paper. It's not obviously a terribly difficult assignment at all. You know, just be sure that you discuss the primary elements that we've been reviewing in the course up to that point, and then always putting emphasis upon critical analysis. Okay, you'll hear me say that over and over this term, because the goal is always to try to review the material as in depth as you possibly can, and not to just simply restate or regurgitate previous details that we've been talking about. Lastly, the final project will be due in Unit 7. It will be the longest deliverable that you have this term. It's going to be roughly 10 to 12 pages in content. I oftentimes receive deliverables that actually come in way above that, and that's perfectly fine. You're going to be writing your own final project, or your own project plan, I should say. And so for those of you that have some experience with that, you know that they can sometimes be a very in-depth and detailed document. So part one is going to be an overview of the items that are typically included in the project plan and kind of what that entails. And so this will be more research oriented, where you'll just be talking about what a project plan really is and analyzing those details, and providing a framework, more or less. And then part two, you're actually going to be executing, or at least writing, a project plan. Okay, and so you're going to select a project of your choice. It should be something that potentially pertains to your own organization or your career pursuits. It could be a job that you are currently aligned with, or an organization that you were affiliated with in the past, and you can discuss a project that either has been done or should be done in that organization. You're going to provide a summary and an overview of the project, what it is, you know, what the problem or issue is that's being addressed. Projects are typically problem oriented. They're seeking to address a problem. They're seeking to increase revenue or to reduce cost. That's oftentimes the two primary reasons for projects in some form or fashion. And then so you're just going to provide those details and specs. Okay, you need to have at least a minimum of 10 sources for this project, and that will not be difficult once you see how in depth this final project is actually going to be. Okay, and this is just a quick overview of the typical project plan components that you will find, and there's a lot of additional resources out in the classroom shell. I should mention that there's information. These same details are available in the classroom shell, and so you can look at this more in depth. By the time we get to the final project in Unit 7, you will be very familiar with most of these frameworks and concepts, because we'll be discussing them in detail throughout the term. So just keep that in mind. And so if some of this is unclear now, you know, do not feel overly concerned or overwhelmed, because we'll be talking about these concepts throughout the entire term. And so when we do get to this portion of the class, you will be very familiar with these items. Okay. And so I would not go through this listing in detail. You know, feel free to go out and pull this down from the classroom shell. I'll also post this presentation so you can pull this down as well and just keep it on file and reference back to it as required if you need to. But as you can see, this is a very in-depth document, and it's going to have a lot of details. You do not necessarily have to include all of these. I'm more or less interested in seeing you pull the concepts that we've discussed throughout the term together in one final deliverable. Okay, with the frameworks, the models we've been using, and all the documents that are typically required. And this is how you will be graded and assessed. And so be sure that you execute a strong project. Okay, leverage the material that we discussed throughout the term and all of the resources that are available within the classroom shell, and there's a lot of them. Okay, and so I will end there. I know that's a fairly quick overview, but hopefully that's beneficial to you in terms of helping you to see, what we'll be doing, helping you to understand my expectations a bit more and what you can expect this term as well as you navigate the course. The course is generally received very well. Learners really enjoy it. So be sure that you dive in and try to gain as much as you possibly can from the course. Okay. If you have any other questions or comments, feel free to touch base with me offline, and I've provided my contact details again, so just feel free to reach out as questions do come up. Okay, so for now I'm going to sign off and end there, and I will see you all in the classroom shell. Looking forward to it. Take care. Bye bye.